I heartily welcome you all to this very important occasion of the launch of IoD Code of Ethics 2020 with the theme, Doing Good is Good Business, the Ethics Dimension. I wish to especially welcome our very distinguished special guest of honor, His Excellency Otumba Adeniyi Adebayo, CON, the Honorable Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment. The chairman of this occasion, His Excellency Dr. Christopher Kolade, CON, DFIOD. Our lead speaker, Alhaji MK Ahmad, OON. Our moderator, Professor Dion Russo, the CEO of the Ethics Institute of South Africa. I also welcome our panelist, Mr. Oscar Onye, FIOD, the CEO of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Unfortunately, Mr. Onyema could not be with us today, but he's been represented by Mrs. Tinuawe, the Executive Director of Operations of the NSC. Mrs. Bola Adeshola, MIOD, the Senior Vice Chairman, Africa, Standard Chartered Bank PLC. And of course, our own Professor Bolaji Osaoye, the Chairman of ICPC. Let me also seize this opportunity to welcome the Presidents of the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, MAN, the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, ICANN, Nigerian Institute of Management, NIM, Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, CIBN, and the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, LCCI, and of course, the Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria, CITN. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the array of eminent personalities here with us this morning goes a long way to confirm the importance of this event to our institute, the Nigerian economy, and our country. Today, we have here the cream of the organized private sector in Nigeria. We also have a team of experts who will be doing justice to this theme. The panelists today bring to us decades of wealth of experience in the areas of business management, governance, and ethics. These highly skilled corporate executives, versatile business leaders with several years of active experience working in various sectors of the economy present a formidable team, and I'm confident that we're in for a wonderful discourse. Ladies and gentlemen, IoD Nigeria prides itself as a champion of good corporate governance, and our pride is our ability to spread the gospel of sound corporate governance in both the private and public sectors of the Nigerian economy. Good ethical practice in business and personal life is sine qua non to good corporate governance. You can hardly differentiate between these two phenomena. It is therefore expected that as a body that continuously advocates best practices and standards in governance, the members of our institute should be role models and standards in ethical practices. One of the key mandates of the Institute of Directors Nigeria is to sustain standards, values, ethics, best traditions, and continuously improve the capacities of directors to fulfill in promoting corporate governance and good business ethics in Nigeria. We have kept faith by establishing sets of rules, regulations, and expectations which were embedded in ethical codes for members since the inception of our institute. However, current challenges and realities informed the need for a review of the provisions of the code. Therefore, in 2018, my predecessor in office, Alhaji Ahmed Rufai Mohammed, DFIOD, presented a proposal and got the approval of the Governing Council for the review of the IoD Code of Ethics for members, and also to introduce the Code of Ethics for staff of the Institute. I commend the vision of our immediate past president, who, like all other past leaders of the Institute, have fought to keep the flame of the mandate burning and instituted successive plans and programs to ensure that the Institute fulfills its mandate. The code that we launched today is IoD Nigeria's commitment to maintaining its position as the leading professional body for directors in Nigeria, while ensuring that its members and staff adhere strictly to the principle of good ethics and good governance and corporate governance in their endeavors. It will serve as a guide for all the Institute's members and its personnel on the practice of sound business ethics and principles, focusing on current realities and current challenges faced by directors in their roles. We now live in a new normal brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic. The IoD Nigeria Code of Ethics will standardize the practice of sound ethical values and principles among members and staff of IoD Nigeria and induce voluntary compliance with the highest ethical standards and better position the Institute to monitor their conduct. It is also the aspiration of the Institute that the IoD Code of Ethics being launched today will serve as a guide for other stakeholders in ethics. Therefore, the code, among others, addresses and guides a number of issues for its members, such as whistleblowing framework, a conflict of interest policy, and a gift and hospitality policy. In the last few years, when we've been working on this code, the Institute has found it necessary to provide illustrative ethics, examples, and case studies to showcase the impact and effects on institutions with poor governance practices and ethics, and the positive impact and business benefits of good ethical practices on organizations. These cases can be accessed at Secretariat. The IoD Nigerian Code of Ethics sets out clearly the values and principles that should guide organizations and directors in order to increase public confidence in board of directors, ensuring sustainability and creating wealth for the benefit of business and the society as a whole. As a manifestation of our commitment to good corporate governance, best practice, and ethics, we will ensure that our members who are directors of institutions subscribe to the tenets of this aspirational code and ensure that as leaders, they are properly enabled and guided in their conduct and behavior in their personal and business endeavors. Our distinguished directors and leaders, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to accordingly encourage all of us to, after the launch of this code, get copies and remain committed to the outlined principles of good ethical practices. The change we expect and envision in Nigeria starts from all of us as corporate and public leaders. Our institute has provided what I would refer to as an easy way to comply with sound and best ethical practices through this code. There will no longer be any tenable excuse of ignorance or lack of knowledge about what to do and how to behave when confronted with ethical challenges. Finally, I thank the Governing Council of the Institute for the vision that has culminated in this launch today, and also the Chairman, Mrs. Amina Oyagbola, FIOD, and all other members of the Ethics Committee of the Institute, as well as the management of the IoD Secretariat for the hard work that had gone into making this event a reality. Thank you all for your attention, and God bless you.
Thank you. A very warm applause once again for the President and the Chairman of the Governing Council, Chief Chris Okunawa, for that very decisive opening address. Of course, I can see online that the chat room is very heavy. There are congratulations, there are comments coming through, and I can see a few comments there even before the panel gets started. And that is pretty good news and shows the extent to which this Code of Ethics 2020 will go, and we appreciate the IoD putting this together. Let's move on very quickly. There's no other person to deliver the goodwill message than the Honorable Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment. His Excellency Otumba Adeniyi Adebayo, CON, is joining us virtually, and we all want to pay attention to the Honorable Minister's presentation at this very important event. Let's take a listen to him. Your Excellency, Honorable Minister, please.
Thank you very much. The chairman of the occasion, His Excellency Dr. Christopher Kolade, the President and Chairman of Council of the Institute of Directors, Chief Chris Okunawa, the Chairperson of the Ethics Committee of the Institute of Directors, Mrs. Amina Oyagbola, members of the Institute of Directors, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It is a great honor for me to be here with you, even though virtually, at the formal launching of the IoD's Nigeria Code of Ethics 2020. The Code of Ethics continues to serve as a strong corporate governance guide and compass for all directors to imbibe the IoD's core values, vision, and mission, and to make decisions that are fair, good, and right in their daily interactions. They help shape the nation's public and private sector suitable ground for thriving investments. I must say that this event could not have come at a better time. The advent of the COVID-19 pandemic has seen many businesses and government institutions and agencies, both local and foreign, struggle for survival. And boards and management develop and execute various decisions to ensure their organizations stay afloat. It is reassuring to know that the Institute of Directors Code of Ethics 2020 clearly lays out the values and principles that should guide the directors in order to preserve and improve public confidence in the boards of companies, ensuring sustainability and creating wealth for the benefit of the businesses and the nation as a whole. Thus, we can say that the establishment of this code is a step in the right direction. The Institute's commitment to high ethical standards in members' professional and personal lives drives its role in promoting good corporate governance and good business ethics. This plays a vital role in achieving our socio-economic goals of job creation and poverty alleviation by attracting investments, both locally and foreign, in the country's economy, as it boosts investor confidence and trust in business leaders and directors, while ensuring the sustainability of existing businesses for generations to come. This is of great importance to the Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, as we continue to address challenges that discourage investments into the Nigerian economy. Specifically, we urge the Institute of Directors to expand conversation around ethical challenges that the COVID-19 pandemic has presented, especially on resource allocation and priority setting, physical distancing, public health surveillance, and workers' rights and obligations. These in turn are complicated by the diverse health systems, unique cultural and the socio-economic context of the country. The pandemic has fostered an increase of government's focus towards ensuring the sustainability of existing businesses in the economy, specifically in the areas of financing, tax relief, and other forms of support. Our industrialization strategy is inclusive and recognizes the important role that micro, small, and medium enterprises, MSMEs, play in sustainable economic growth. We understand that the Institute can play a major role in mentoring MSMEs by providing guidance on quality and standards, use of technology, organization design, and even financing options. That will help them mature and become true drivers and indeed beneficiaries of economic growth. We welcome suggestions and input on how best to make these programs work, and we are fully committed to support the Institute as necessary. I must commend the Institute on their work so far, and for continuously instilling high ethics, not only within the Institute's body of members, but also beyond. Indeed, doing good is good business. However, it is imperative that the Institute takes conscious and thoughtful steps to ensure members adhere to the code's objective of making decisions that are fair, good, and right as we work to revive the nation's economy. As much as I would have loved to stay till the end of the program with you, I would like to crave the indulgence of the chairman and the president and members of the IoD to leave immediately, as I have just been summoned to an emergency meeting in the villa by His Excellency, the Vice President. However, I would like to thank you very much for taking time to listen to me. And I pray that may God bless the IoD and may God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your brief but very incisive goodwill message. Excellency, the Honorable Minister Otumba Adeniyi Adebayo, CON, the Minister in charge of Industry, Trade, and Investments. We appreciate that. We would like to continue at this end to speak and to continue to listen. A very important part of today's event of the launch of this Code of Ethics 2020 by the Institute of Directors Nigeria. The chairman of today's event is none other than the man who's been associated with integrity in business, in particular since 1996, when he sat down and led a few other young people to form the business integrity. And they are none other than Dr. Christopher Kolade. As a journalist 24 years ago, covering that particular event at Muson Center, set the tone for me of what today becomes integrity in Nigeria's corporate world. He was the chairman of Cadbury Nigeria PLC and the head of Nigeria's mission to the United Kingdom. Please put your hands together for Dr. Christopher Kolade, CON, DFIOD, the chairman of this occasion.
Thank you very much for that very warm welcome. And I want to say thank you indeed to everybody who's here, particularly Your Excellency, the Minister. We're glad you could be with us for a few minutes. And I want to congratulate also our President and members of the Governing Council who have brought this event to happen today. I think what I'd like to say before calling on the lead speaker is simply this, that directors of enterprises, directors of institutions are very conscious of the fact that they are stewards of other people's resources. The owners of the business have invested in the business. Other people have invested their energy, their service, and so on. And the directors have been delegated with the responsibility from the owners to manage these things so as to produce the expected results. Now, in order to do that, we all have to be mindful of the fact that we are surrounded by stakeholders of this enterprise. The owners, the employees, the financiers, people like that. We are surrounded by these stakeholders who all make an input to the success of the organization and also have expectations of some kind of returns from the investment they have made. And it is up to the directors sitting as a board to make sure they do everything to create the wealth that this enterprise was set up to create, and to make sure that that wealth is distributed equitably to those who have made the input. Now, obviously, the directors must be people that are trusted by the other stakeholders. And it is this trust from the stakeholders that is the key to the necessity of ethics. And so we have a situation in which if you practice the right ethics, and I'm glad that we've been emphasizing this morning best practice and things like that. If you practice the right ethics, there is a building of mutual confidence between the directors, the people who run the company, and the stakeholders who have expectations. This mutual confidence can only be built if the directors and other input makers recognize the fact that they must make themselves accountable for the way they utilize the resources that have been given to them. So it's this accountability that is the platform on which we must practice the best ethics, because if somebody wants to be accountable to somebody else, then there must be an element of mutual trust, mutual confidence. And for us, given the experience of a few years ago where corporations failed and banks failed and things like that, the temptation to look at codes of ethics as something meant to deal with bad people, temptation is very strong. But let us concentrate today on the fact that the code of ethics that we're launching today specifies the standards, the values, the disciplines that we expect from all those who are accountable to each other, especially the directors of the enterprise. And it is this accountability based on the proper ethics, integrity that builds mutual confidence. That should be our focus. I'm very privileged today to see the people who are on the panel, especially these are people with whom I have shared podiums before. So I'm glad we're together again today. And I am very pleased that Alhaji Ahmad is going to be our lead speaker. Without spending any more of your time, it would be my pleasure to yield the floor now so that he can lead us into the discussion. Thank you very much.
Very big thank you to Dr. Christopher Kolade, CON DFIOD, for that very brief and incisive remark, reminding everyone that doing good is good business, and code of ethics for directors is the way to go, in particular for emerging and frontier economies such as ours. We need integrity in business to attract both domestic and foreign investment, and doing business will be a lot easier with the code of ethics in the boardroom and especially in the C-suite. Let me now have the pleasure to invite the moderator for the panel discussion, Professor Dion Russo, to facilitate this panel discussion, introduce members of the panel, and then we would, the list speaker, I beg your pardon, please, the list speaker will take the floor virtually. I'm sure you're ready. You have a few minutes to have this, you have your speech. Then, of course, the panel will take over. Dr. Ahmed? Dr. Ahmad? Dr. M.K. Ahmad, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Your Excellency, Dr. Kolade, CON, the President and Chairman of the Institute of Directors. Your Excellency, I would also want to take permission to recognize and respect the various protocols that have been laid. And therefore, without wasting time, and given the fact that I have basically 10 minutes to lead the discussions, I thought I should go straight into the few thoughts and comments I have. Why do we have unethical behavior? Why do people want to engage in unethical behavior? Perhaps it's convenient. Perhaps it's a shortcut to success. Perhaps they are under pressure to meet performance targets, either by their shareholders, management, or perhaps it's the culture or the attitude of the dirty hands. In other words, justifying unethical acts to achieve good things? Or is it because others are doing it and we need to get ahead and we have to do it? So, in other words, the many hands concept, don't blame us because others are doing it. Or is this the blaze attitude? Who cares? There's no interest, nobody cares, nobody is bothered. Who gives a shit as to what is happening? I will do it because I will not be found. And unfortunately, perhaps it has also been institutionalized, well rationalized, and perhaps entrenched in the system. Or I don't want to be singled out as an outcast. Often people remain silent because they don't want to discuss that. Or even though it's immoral or it's unethical, but because it's legal, so what is wrong? Which means that I'm going to be cut. Or is this just an issue of just being greedy and ensuring that you can get away with anything? Or perhaps the political will, particularly in the public sector, to ensure that high ethical standards are maintained, that either shifted or misfocused. So there are a number of reasons why individuals, corporations, institutions engage in an ethical practice. But is an ethical practice, is it in the interest of the individual, the business, or the community? So why is good ethics a good business? Companies should be able to define their focus and commitment, not just to their shareholders, of course, which is the shareholder value concept, but to a broader stakeholders. And as most of us in this event, we testify to the fact that companies have since shifted from focusing on just shareholder value to stakeholder value. And it is through that, and the reasons are simple. Because customers are driving change. Customers are asking questions and are insisting that brands must have positive impact on the society and the environment. So they're demanding more, they're smart, and they know exactly what they want and how to get it. Although customers are interested in convenience and low price, but they want brands to be more ethical and also take responsibility for sustainable practices. So customer loyalty and trust are linked to the values of a company and their ethics. Otherwise, companies or individuals may not be able to maintain long-term relationships. And as the chairman of the occasion said, trust is the basis of any relationship. If your customer or your stakeholders cannot trust you, you can't build long-term relationship. And if you cannot build long-term relationship, obviously you can't build long-term stakeholder value. So customers can decide to walk away or shun products and start campaigning. And of course, we'll also agree that the social media has been an extremely powerful tool that can destroy a brand overnight. Just take your Twitter handle and comment on a particular brand or product, and that's the end of it. So it's important for us to realize that the agenda has moved from CSR to delivering stakeholder value to win over customers and create a brand loyalty. Ethical practices, of course, drive investors, attracts investors and other stakeholders. An ethical practice can succeed, but it cannot succeed forever, because one way or the other, unethical practices can be found out. So good ethics is about long-term sustainability, not just the next sales or the next revenues, but the long-term perspective of survival as an institution. So for that reason, it is important for members and of course businesses to know that ethics restore trust in business, It also prevents failures, provides stability in business, but beyond that, it's also directly related to profitability in the short and the long term. Investors are likely to invest, extend credits, do business with organizations that have good ethics. And therefore, we need good ethics, at least to build our public image. In addition to that, of course, good ethics establish rules of behavior and send a strong message that compliance is expected. And we also provide a specific warning as to if it is not complied. So why do we need code of ethics? The Institute of Directors have now produced a code of ethics, which I do not intend to discuss, and I believe this is subject of further discussions. But to just remind us as to why do we need code of ethics? A code is supposed to serve as a vision and aspiration for excellence. It's supposed to be an general accepted obligation for us as those who ascribe to the code. But beyond that is a standard of behavior to strive to attain, which poses a special sense of responsibility. It motivates ethical behavior, conscience, and avoids shame. Beyond that is a written guide and induces good ethical behavior. It increases and facilitates compliance or adoption. It assists us as members of that prestige or elite or perhaps association to focus on actions that will result in doing the right thing at the right time for the right reason all the time. It provides a pride of being a member of the Institute, a pride that motivates a commitment. And therefore, it supports and facilitates the adherence of the Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance 2018. It's also a benchmark that will assist the Institute to coordinate and work with sector supervisors and corporate governance. As we are aware, the Nigerian Stock Exchange and CBI have CGRS for listed companies. I believe this code should be able to interface and promote that. It also reinforces the sustainability governance reporting system, which most companies adhere to. But in addition to that, it's not just about the Institute, but also adherence to other professional ethics. So we expect that this code will provide clarity on the standards that govern organizations' relationship with stakeholders, provide guidance on conduct that are acceptable or unacceptable to the organization, enhance the trust and reliability and commitment, and aligns external expectations with that of the organization, and at the same time avoid specific potential risks. Let me, Mr. Chairman, acknowledge and recognize the most powerful message in this code. And that's the statement of the President and Chairman of the Council. And I'll just quote, it's in the code. Corporate governance and ethics means doing right things in the right way, at the right time, in a responsible manner by the right person. I would also want to add, at all times. For me, this is the most comprehensive and easy to internalize the meaning of corporate governance and ethics. And members should be able to understand that you don't need to look at theories or philosophical underpinnings or jargons in terms of the definition of ethics and corporate governance, but doing the right things in the right way, at the right time, for the right purpose, all the time. If we as members or as individuals, whether we work for the private or the public sector, continue to remember and it becomes our guiding principle, then obviously implementation of this code becomes much easier. Again, in the same court, there's also the promise, which I also want to quote, Mr. Chairman. A solemn promise is that these ethical standards will underpin every future of our endeavors, both as an institution and for our members individually, as a way of life. As a way of life. This promise underscores that corporate governance and by extension, ethical code is about values and principles represented by sets of behavior that determines the culture. Not every action is permitted by law, is ethical. And therefore the board must ensure that all its decisions meet both legal and ethical standards. And if it is a way of life, this underscores one of the most important aspects of corporate governance and ethical standard, that is a set of behavior and therefore is a culture. You don't legislate culture, you don't force culture, but people take specific set of behavior because of some of the arguments we have earlier put forward. Mr. Chairman, I also want to commend the Institute of Directors for aligning this court to the Nigerian Court of Corporate Governance. When the Financial Reporting Council and the Ministry of Industry commissioned us to fashion out the Nigerian Court of Corporate Governance in 2018, we were at a dilemma. And the dilemma was that this is a country that the only way you can get things done is you must ensure compliance. You must use the law. You must use this, you must do. But we felt the most important and the most powerful tool to get, whether it's a code, whether it's a behavior with the value internalized, is adaptive principle-based system. So it took us time to convince Nigerians that we don't need rule-based. That the philosophy of the court should be to influence corporate behavior to ensure that individuals would behave in a particular manner because they want to behave in that manner, not that because there is a rule or there is a sanction. So I'm happy that this court has also adopted the same process. In other words, instead of adopting a rule-based code of ethics, they also adopted principle-based code of ethics. So this code was definitely complementary and will adopt will promote the adoption of the Nigerian Court of Corporate Governance. Of course, in the Nigerian Court of Corporate Governance, there are two principles, Principle 24 and 25, that talks about ethics. And specifically, it says the board should clearly model a top-down commitment to professional business and ethical standards by formulating and periodically reviewing the code of business conduct and ethics. Essentially, this is what this code is doing. So I hope and pray that this code will internalize ethical behaviors in our Nigerian companies, will promote also awareness of the need for strong corporate governance, will rebuild the trust and confidence in the Nigerian economy, and by extension, increase trade and investment, will align the interests of the board management and those of other stakeholders, and will also help to demonstrate a commitment of good governance practices at the various levels. How, and just to almost conclude, Mr. Chairman, given the fact that I have essentially 10 minutes, how do you ensure this code is adopted universally? For me, it is pleasing and gratifying to note that this code is focusing on prevention. Prevention is the right way. And I think as members of the Institute, whether I work for the private, is that yes, it's good to have sanctions, but prevention is promoting the culture. And when you have the culture, then you adopt it, or perhaps you implement it without you knowing. So I think this is what we need to focus. And I'm happy that the chairman of the ICPC is also in this event, at this event, that we have to find a way of focusing on prevention. What do we need to do? And that's some of the issues I will also take you through. I'm also happy to note that the focus is that this is a process, not an event. It's a process to build and sustain and strong ethical culture. It targets a behavioral change and secures voluntary adoption. Of course, as we are all aware, voluntary adoption, of course, is the best, because this is an adoption that, because you've gotten the right person doing the right thing, blah, 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 blah. But beyond that, Mr. Chairman, I would also want to suggest that this institute should work with trade association, industry association, professional association, government, the Financial Reporting Council, sector regulators, professional institutes, because each one of them, they have their own code. How would they adopt so that this code becomes the gold standard? And therefore it is expected that others work. But beyond that, Mr. Chairman, the ethical dilemma in day-to-day activities is quite significant and overbearing. And therefore the Institute and members must build resources and support members and others. They must support individuals who are in difficult positions and who may have to take an ethical decision, and they may not have the opportunity. We also need to encourage and support associations to adopt the code, but we need to encourage our members and institutions to promote transparent systems. Of course, supply, administration, procurement is a major issue, whether in the public or private sector. Has been so much abuse that we're defined as a country or as public sector, private sector, the way we operate our supply system. There must be full disclosure. Mr. Chairman, the capital market is efficient largely because of disclosure. And I think we must encourage. If there are disclosures, then there are no areas people can hide, and there will not be toll gates, and nobody will claim that he has all the information. Beyond that, Mr. Chairman, we must leverage on technology. We must leverage on technology so that if I have access at the same time, if somebody is in UK or any other part of the world, I have the same access. And therefore, it eliminates somebody taking advantage of that information as metric. Training is very, very important. Training not just for members, but ensuring that all those that require training on a continuous basis. Communication, we must communicate our code of ethics. We must understand, ensure on a sustainability basis. In various institutions, Mr. Chairman, we must encourage ethical frameworks. In many companies, particularly multinationals, they do ethical service. They have ethical officers. They have certification for ethics. And I'm happy that the moderator represents the Ethical Institute in South Africa. We must create hotlines and helplines and ethic websites so that people will continue to, and this thing should not be done by us, it should be done by others. If I work for a company, I should be able to get KPMG or Pricewaterhouse Ernst & Young to assist me do that. But I think the greatest challenge, Mr. Chairman, is working with government for public sector adaptation and code. We are living in a society, and we can only operate and be more efficient depending on how our society is developed. So the Institute should work with the government, whether at the subnational level or the federal level, to ensure that we build a very strong code. It's not about code, Mr. Chairman, it's about behavior. And I'm happy that the focus is on influencing behavior. And we should also realize that this is a journey that has started. Perhaps we may not be seeing the fruits in the next decade or so, but let's start building. We should not also be discouraged that perhaps we are not seeing early results, and therefore we should be as committed as possible. Beyond that, Mr. Chairman, ethics is not faith-based. It is not about religion or morality, even though they intersect at some point. Ethics is about culture of good conduct. It entails doing right things and with due regards to the interests of others. As they say, injury to one is injury to all, Mr. Chairman. My time is up, and I would just want to thank and express appreciation. And I also have to be, hope to be part of the to explain or to contribute. Are there consequences for breach of ethical policy? Of course, there are consequences. The fact that I belong to a group, for me, is more important than the policeman. Because as a professional, I would want to protect my profession and integrity. And if by any chance I breach that, then of course it is me that is affected. And if by any chance I have to go through a certification, and then at the end of the day I'm removed as a member, for me is the most important thing. But of course, there is also a naming and shaming and the consequences. But beyond that, Mr. Chairman, as a business, and I've listed a number of issues, that the consequences of breach of ethical standard is quite huge. And therefore, good ethics is good business. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Our lead speaker, Mr. M.K. Ahmad, OON, the chairman of Polaris Bank PLC. Thank you very much for that presentation. We appreciate that and setting the tone for the panel that we're about to start. We'll notice that we have close to 300 participants already, and many of them, because they're online, we're trying to see ourselves. We have on the participant list the Registrar General of the Corporate Affairs Commission, Alhaji Ahmed Abubakar. Thank you very much. We appreciate also the presence and representatives of the president of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, the Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria, the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, as well as NASIMA, the Chamber for Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture. We thank you, everyone. But also recognizing very specially the special advisor to the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria on the ease of doing business and the head of the PEBEC Secretariat, Dr. Jumoke Oduwole. Thank you very much for joining us for this very important event. We'll have a long way to go, but we're moving on very quickly. We have goodwill messages coming through. The survey is out there. We want you to be part of it. We appreciate the comments that we've heard so far, and that are all showing online and in the chat room that you can see on the right side of your screen. We want you to keep them coming, and the Institute is taking note here at the headquarters. Thank you very much. Let me hand over now to Professor Dion Rosol, who will facilitate the panel discussion for about 30 minutes. There'll be a question and answer period for about 15 minutes. Then we'll spend the final minutes to take a goodwill messages and the feedback from the survey and the vote of thanks by the Director General and Chief Executive Officer of the IoD Nigeria. Over to you, Professor Dion.
Good morning. It gives me great joy to join you this morning here from a sunny winter's morning in Pretoria, South Africa, on this very important occasion. I've worked with the IoD of Nigeria many times over the last decade, and it's great to be involved in this event this morning. As we've heard by now, there's a very intimate link between corporate governance and ethics. Probably the shortest definition of corporate governance is to say it's about enterprise with integrity. And I'm always delighted to see these two words appearing in the mission and vision of the Institute of Directors of Nigeria. We all know, and Mr. Ahmad just emphasized that again, that one of the outcomes of good governance is an ethical culture. But ethical culture does not fall out of thin air. It is something that must be deliberately cultivated, and boards have a very special responsibility to govern the ethics of organizations. And in the process of governing the ethics of any organizations, the ethical standards of the organization as articulated in a code of ethics is absolutely central. So this is why I'm so delighted to be part of this event, because this is an important milestone to get clarity on what are the ethical standards that not should only apply to the Institute of Directors as an organization itself, but also to all members of this Institute of Directors in Nigeria. Having said that, I think it is important to recognize that ultimately a code of ethics consists of words on paper. That is what you have, words on paper. And unless certain things are being done in organizations, it won't have an impact. In other words, we must give life to those words in order to ensure that the words on paper become a living document and become the ethics constitution of an organization. And that is why we have a panel here this morning to tell us more about what could be done to ensure that a code of ethics gets traction, that it ultimately impacts on how organizations behave and conduct themselves in society. And I want to welcome our three panelists. The first one, unfortunately, as you have heard at the start of proceedings, we can't be joined by Mr. Oscar Onyema anymore because of a loss in his family. But we are glad to be joined by Ms. Dunaude Awe, the Executive Director of the Regulation Division of the Nigeria Stock Exchange. We will also be joined by Mrs. Bola Adesola, the Senior Vice Chair, Africa at Standard Chartered Bank, and then also by Professor Bulaji Owasanoye, the Chair of the Independent Corrupt Practice and Other Related Offences Commission, or in short, as I think we are all familiar with it, the ICPC. And can I start with you, Ms. Awe, from the Nigeria Stock Exchange, by asking you, what role can regulators like the Nigeria Stock Exchange play to ensure that codes of ethics become effective and does not merely remain some words on paper?
Thank you very much. Let me stand on existing protocols and express the thanks of the Nigerian Stock Exchange for the opportunity to participate in this epoch-making moment. To your question, the exchange is a frontline regulator of the market that it operates. And as a regulator, one of the core things that is a tenet of its regulatory program is disclosure. And I think Mr. Ahmad made that point around disclosure being very, very important when you're talking about ethics. You can't talk about ethics and then you put it under, you hide it in a bush. And so we think that one of the very first things that you can see a correlation between the work we do as a frontline regulator and a code of ethics like this is how are directors disclosing their compliance with the code of ethics. So if there's no disclosure to us, only half of the work is done. You've done the work, you've said that they should comply, but what the investors want to know, what the market wants to know is that there's disclosure around it. This brings to my mind a quote in a book called Other People's Money by now deceased dead Justice of the US Supreme Court, Justice Louis Brandeis, who said that sunlight is the best of disinfectants and electricity light the most efficient policeman. Because our markets are built on disclosure, if you disclose the ethical standards that each director follows, if each director is required to disclose compliance with the code on a regular basis, we think that it ties into what we do at the exchange. And so disclosure, number one. Another thing that we think that markets, a regulator like us can do is, although you have to be careful not to legislate ethics, there are some of the principles that are espoused in the code, which a regulator can look at and say, we will require compliance with X, Y, and Z principles in that code. So the code gives a good basis. And because it comes from the industry, there's a bottom-up approach to the code. So what the regulator then does is say, I'm not saying you have to comply with the entire code, because I expect there to be an ethical culture. I expect there to be a culture that wants to comply, and that as an individual, you have become a director and you have decided to buy and imbibe that culture. However, because I have that document, I can now prescribe in my rules that you should comply with X, Y, and Z. And so for us as a regulator, it helps us to have a basis, on which to, bring about compliance, on which to bring about enforcement as well, while walking that fine line to ensure that you are not, legislating ethical culture. I think the other thing for us at the exchange and as a regulator is that it seems that there is now a coming together of certain types of mores and ethics and practices. If you look at the Code of Corporate Governance, the FRC Code of Corporate Governance, Principle 19 on whistleblowing, Principles 24 and 25 that talk about ethical culture and business conduct and ethics, they're converging to a point where you can now say that even if something is not a rule, a regulator like us can say, in writing to a board where we feel that a director has misbehaved, point to the that code and other codes that have this, that are coalescing around the same sorts of expectations, to say this is a standard of expectation that we expect. And the back and in that back and forth, initially people may say, well, they're not in your rules, but after a while, as it gains acceptance, nobody's going to say that, and you can then make it as one of the things that you refer to and that you expect directors to comply with. And so for us, this is a very, very important moment, just coming I think under 2 years after the Corporate Governance Code came into existence. And we welcome this same sort of activity from other organizations and pressure groups, because it makes our job as a regulator easier. I'll stop there for now.
Okay, thank you, and wonderful. I think the point that you made about disclosure is so important. In order to govern ethics, there needs to be disclosure on ethics to the governing body. Otherwise, there's nothing that they can oversee. And I also take your point as an important one, that a code like this really put certain instrument in your hand that can strengthen your hand in your regulatory role. We will take the conversation a bit further, but let's first bring in our second panelist, Ms. Bola Adesola from Standard Chartered Bank. And the question that I would like you to speak on also for no more than 5 minutes, please, is what role can business play, a business like you, a financial institution, to ensure that the code really impacts on the behavior of your organization in the marketplace?
Thank you very much, Professor Russo. Well, first I will say that I think my association with the IoD is even more meaningful by the launch of the revised Code of Corporate Governance. I think there are many roles that businesses can play to ensure that code of ethics have an impact on the market. And I will touch on 4. But before I do that, I will quickly share examples of how, as an organization, we have operationalized our code of conduct, which embodies the ethical conduct that is expected of everyone in the organization. I think oftentimes when we talk about code of ethics or code of conduct, we refer to directors, but it's important to realize that every single individual in an organization is responsible. And before a market can develop, it's important that there are effective practices in organizations within the market. So as a corporate organization, our motto is here for good, but we believe that good is not even good enough unless the intention to do good is operationalized. And indeed, to have influence and impact in the marketplace, it's important that an organization itself has the moral and ethical platform with which to influence others and influence the market. So apart from a code of conduct that directors have to sign up to and attest to annually, every single member of staff within our organization globally also has to attest to a group-wide code of conduct annually. And apart from that, in order to embed these standards, there are also annual mandatory learnings that every single individual has to undergo, so that, and we've spoken about, many people have spoken about culture today, and that is the way in which we drive that culture of good individual behavior and corporate responsibility. Because if one person or organization does not act properly, it affects the whole organization. And if one organization doesn't act properly, it can actually affect a sector in business. If you take an example of pharmaceutical industry, just because one or two pharmaceutical companies have had issues with vaccines in the past, there's seeming lack of trust, and that is how improper conduct by one company can actually affect the perception of its sector. And I can give many examples, but we don't have time for my example of where an organization's high ethical standards actually astound its clients, and by the actions that we've taken. Two other areas are in relation to organizations' dealings with community and with government. And I think those are often sort of less spoken about and emphasized. So for example, in Standard Chartered, we set goals as to how we will conduct our business sustainably. So environmental, no lending, for example, to any coal-fired power plants, child labor, animal trafficking, and so on, and the expectations that we set for our vendors and our suppliers. So if we look at the roles now specifically, I think one key role that a business can play, and we do as an organization, is to demonstrate long-term reputational and sustainable benefits from having a code of ethics in place. There are times when an organization may suffer short-term pain and deliberately forego financial gain because it chooses to do the right thing. It chooses to adhere to its code of ethics. And I dare say for us as an organization, it has cost us some over time. But because we are long-term players, it does not really matter. So an organization that is looking long-term will be sustainable from a business perspective if it does the right thing. And what does the market how does the market perceive the organization? It's through the fact that it runs business responsibly. It stands for something, and what it stands for is its reputation. And if an organization has a good reputation, it then also, that reputation acts as a marketing tool for it, because counterparties and clients want to deal with those that share the same values. The second role is a business can drive market convergence towards acceptable standards of conduct. And in this regard, we've also seen market development of agreed standards of responsible conduct that have been influenced or initiated by one or two businesses, stepping up to demand consistent market rules of mutual engagement. And an example in the local market here is an organization called the Financial Markets Dealers Association, FMDA. It started off as a money market association, which was a loose gathering of bank treasurers monthly. Now, late 80s to the 90s, it became more structured. And today, it's actually a self-regulatory body with a code of conduct for bank treasurers and financial markets dealers that sets the standards as to how they should engage with each other. Organizations like the Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria and so on and so forth also have codes of conduct for their own trade associations as well. The third role is that the business can trigger downstream multiplier effect. And I touched on it briefly earlier, but this is in the area of its dealings with vendors and suppliers. So for example, Standard Chartered has clauses which impose ethical standards and promote values of integrity and social accountability in our dealings with our suppliers. We will not contract or do business with anyone who is unable to adhere to these standards. We even ask them to ensure they have codes of conduct in their organizations. And the significance of this is the multiplier effect that it creates downstream, particularly helping SMEs become more robust in corporate governance. And the final role that I will talk about, and like I said, there are many, but I will just touch on a few, is thought leadership. When an organization has established a code of conduct that it operationalizes and not just puts in a shelf on a shelf and doesn't actually live, it's important that such a business offers guidance and insight to stakeholders and also advances progressive thinking through engagement with decision makers and influencers. And as I close, as an example, a couple of years ago, we organized a financial crime summit. And we had the Nigerian Customs Service, we had the EFCC, the NFIU, the central bank, with other experts from other countries to talk about financial crimes compliance and illicit financial flows. And the dialogue was really about influencing personal and institutional decision-making in ethical ways. And for people who are local in Nigeria, they understand why this is necessary for those institutions. But ethical ways for the good of enhanced trade and investment flows, and ultimately positively impacting the Nigerian economy. So I'll stop there, but it is clear that there are various roles that businesses can play, businesses that have code of ethics in ensuring that marketplace adherence to high ethical standards is introduced, improved, and embedded. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It makes a lot of sense what you are saying, that ethics can instill trust in you as an organization. It can change the organization for the better. But I really appreciate what you said, that it can also have a very positive impact on the broader market and also on its whole supply chain and its business partners. And I think this is especially important. Let's move on to our third panelist and ask Professor Bulaji Obasanoye from the ICPC to tell us how he sees codes of ethics also playing a role in the ongoing fight against corruption. Professor, would you please make your opening statement?
Thank you very much, and congratulations to IoD for putting this together. My last interaction with them was 1992, when I developed the guidelines for directors, then breaking down the duties of directors in the Companies and Allied Matters Act of 1990. It's good to be part of this conversation. Is there any role for a code of ethics like this? Yes. It's like a reminder of what the holy books say that people ignore, and then they are extracted and put into business documents. The truth of the matter is that the code reinforces what many laws and regulations already say. Not everything, but substantially quite a number of things. Don't let's forget that for every breach of a code of ethic or integrity rule that you find, one professional association, one law or the other already prevents it. So whereas, and I noticed that somebody early on put in a question whether or not this is enforceable, Now, it depends on how you define enforce. The last speaker has already said one of the points, which I noted, which is that those who play in a particular sector can decide, we will not accept this, and we will keep out those who want to practice in this way. Don't let's forget that many of the practices of specialized or different business areas were decided by those who play in that sector that this is the way we're going to play this game. If you look at maritime sector, aviation sector, insurance sector, even banking itself, they all decided one time about them. We can say, unfortunately, that most of those practices or principles that were developed were, of course, for self-interest and to protect themselves and advance their economic interests. But they can do the same thing for ethics and to say, we will not do this. So if big business, for example, say, we will not pay bribes to get contracts, and government needs to get things done, they will find that nobody is willing to do it. Who can do it? Who will pay a bribe? And they will be forced to comply with the industry demand. The problem, of course, is that the industry in many respects has not learned and firmly put its foot down to keep out the bad eggs. So one bad apple often spoils the whole bunch, and people then tend to paint entire sectors in one brush, simply because one bad case is allowed to fester, and sometimes it spills over and affects other people. So my first take is that every case of lack of integrity or ethics in business is often a violation of one law, one regulation, one code or the other. The second thing I think that could be done with regard to making this impact the anti-corruption agenda is tying as minimally or as maximally as the industry or even IoD, for example, can, to tie enforcement to administrative sanctions in the minimum. In the minimum. Sometimes the breach of a code or a code of ethics is not a breach of a law. So you cannot send someone to jail simply because they have broken the code of ethics. And I think Mrs. Aware said something about not legislating ethical standards. However, I would go on to say that if those who operate in any industry make the society uncomfortable, it often will result in regulation, one way or the other. A lot of the laws and regulations that we have today, they are society's reaction to its own discomfort by the way people in business have behaved. So every time you find a number of today's regulatory obstacles to smooth business operations, which businessmen complain about, that it adds to the cost of business, it's bureaucratic and all that. They are the society's reaction to something that had gone bad somewhere down the line or in the past. So whereas I agree that you cannot legislate ethical or moral conduct, but I can guarantee you that if you make society uncomfortable enough, one day somebody will say, we need to stop this. And then it becomes a regulation. So we need to be careful that when these sort of codes are launched, if they are not quote and unquote enforced, I mean, you can't take people to court, as I said, but certainly you can tie them to some form of administrative sanctions. And those breaches, which correlate with prohibitions within existing laws and regulations, then you demand enforcement. So if you demand enforcement, you are likely then to get a lot more value out of introducing the codes and all that. The other point that I would like to make, often from the law enforcement perspective, one of the things that I find interesting in my work is that when we set out to look at a small matter, like the breach of a code, for example, that is also enforceable or sanctionable by some law or some regulation, we always find what we are not looking for, something else that had been done and hidden, but is obviously very bad and inimical, and is a breach of a law. So often I tell people, don't set the society or the law enforcement looking for, finding what they were not looking for. And a code like this, if you are able to tie to some form of firm application and enforcement, administratively for starters, however IoD or other bodies want to put it, you prevent long-term full law enforcement from coming in. Now, self-regulation is the best regulation. You can decide how it happens. You can minimize or reduce the pain. External enforcement is often much more painful, okay? And it is less sensitive to your sentiments. But if it is done internally, you can minimize and manage the risk. We don't want these kinds of people in our midst, in our business. You keep them out of it. But if you allow somebody else to come and do it for you, it's often much more painful and much more damaging and much more expensive. So this will be my opening comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm well aware that we are running behind time. So I'm keeping an eye on the Q&A and also on the chat. And I want to follow up with just one question to each of our panelists. And I think then we most probably will be out of time. So can I also ask you to keep your responses brief? The one question deals specifically, and Ms. Alway, can I direct this question to you? Deals specifically with the relationship between the IoD Code of Ethics and the Nigeria Code of Corporate Governance. And the question basically is, how should we understand the relationship between these two codes? Are they supplementary, or should one take precedence over the other? What is your view on this relationship?
Thank you. Well, I think that that question actually is a bit of a, I don't like the question, Prof, and I'll tell you why I don't like it. I don't like the question because the question, when I think about it, I think you're asking me to basically create a hierarchy, and there's no hierarchy. They're both important, and they both serve they both serve the same purpose, but they serve different purposes as well. So obviously the Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance is a code generally about corporate governance, although you can make the argument that you cannot talk about corporate governance without talking about ethics. And so it's like 6 of one and half a dozen of another to me. I've looked at the Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance in some detail. I have to confess I haven't spent the same amount of time looking at the Code of Ethics. In fact, I just saw certain briefs about it. And so it's very difficult for me to say one is, one supersedes the other. But I will say that the Code of Ethics is from a very important institution. It's an institution that is very well respected in Nigeria, and generally institutes of directors around the world have a great impact and influence and pressure, and a pressure group for good. And so certainly, I don't think that anybody becoming a director of at least a public company, a concessioned company, or any of the companies that the Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance applies to will do well to ignore the Code of Ethics of the IoD, notwithstanding that they may not be members of the IoD. And of course, the Code of Corporate Governance applies to everybody. And so you can't, you've got to look at that as well. So I think they're complementary, to answer your question. I think they're good. And I think the more we fill the space with industry-led documents like this, the better for the standard of ethical culture and governance in the country. Thank you.
Okay. It makes perfect sense what you're saying. They are complementary, and it's not about a hierarchy. They have different jobs to do, so to speak. Ms. Adesola, can I ask you, there was a question about what happens if there's a breach of the code of conduct. Now, having had the opportunity to look at the code, both for members as well as for staff, I know that there's a section that deals specifically with the breach of the code. So I think that the person who posed the question, if they study the code, they would see that there are very specific arrangements. But can I ask you, from your experience, when it comes to breaches of your code of ethics, what do you think is the best way and the most productive way to respond to that?
Thank you very much. Well, first of all, any code should have standards of behavior, but should also have the consequences of non-compliance with those standards. So it is important that to the extent possible, the sanctions and the consequences of non-compliance are very clear. Because whilst we don't want arbitrary behavior and discretionary behavior, we also don't want arbitrary and discretionary application of sanctions or reactions to people breaching the code. But again, it all boils down to culture. Because this is really not so much about when one is being policed and what are the sanctions when one does wrong, but rather how an organization should conduct its business and how its people should conduct themselves, even when no one is watching. And that is where practices that help embed acceptable behavior and acceptable business practices are important. So, for example, if it's a financial institution, the key members of staff and directors should know how the institution makes money. It is not enough to declare profit and people don't know how the money is made. What are the risks in making money? At what point do we say no to transactions because they do not align with our ethics? But it should be the organization should be very clear about the messaging on the tolerance level, if at all.
Okay, good. And I think what you say about culture is very true. We've seen it in our own studies that there's a clear correlation between the strength of ethical culture and the number of observed misconduct over a 12-year period. So I think you're absolutely spot on. Professor, the last word goes to you. First of all, there's someone who says in the chat function that they totally agree with you that self-regulation is the best form of regulation. And you talked about that there should be consequences, negative consequences if people don't adhere. But here's a difficult question for you. Do you think there should also be positive consequences for people who do adhere to the ethical standards of organization? Should there be active recognition of people who do the right thing?
Certainly, I think that it encourages then people to do the right thing. Impunity serves where there is no consequence for wrong behavior. And don't let's forget that many codes of ethics, they sort of try to help you from crossing the Rubicon to wrongdoing. So they are designed to say, for example, directors are not supposed to make secret profits. That has been the rule since how many hundreds of years in the UK. Up till today, directors make secret profits. Now, we talked about transparency and beaming the light in order to prevent wrongdoing. So the more you introduce rules and guidelines to stop people from crossing the line, the better for everybody at the end of the day. So if there are people who are doing the right thing, they should be celebrated. Regrettably, society celebrates rascals and not the people who do the right thing. And when we're talking about culture, I mean, speaking about Nigeria, people don't ask questions about how people became successful. So at the end of the day, the message that is sent is that crime pays, because also there is no consequence for wrongdoing. And the people who do the right thing, they sometimes feel like idiots, okay? But all the time, I think from what I've seen here is that doing the right thing is a long-term thing. Sooner or later, there will be one Pharaoh who does not know Joseph, and he will come in and begin to open the books. So some of the cases that law enforcement agencies deal with are 10, 15 years old because somebody was so politically well connected, it was not looked at a particular point in time. But the rule in most countries is that the time does not run against the state when it comes to wrongdoing. So sooner or later, it can be opened up 20 years down the line. And then the corpse that was buried, but improperly buried, the leg is showing, we then open up the whole thing. So I think that celebrating those who do the right thing helps to complement and to encourage those who are in the valley of indecision, which way they should go. You say doing the right thing is also celebrated. I better ignore, I better forsake these negative thoughts of doing the wrong thing.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And I totally agree with you. We should catch those who do wrong, but we should also catch those who do right. And I always say when it comes to culture, you don't build an ethical culture by focusing on what you don't want. In other words, paying all your attention to dealing with those who do wrong. It is very important in building that ethical culture to also celebrate those everyday heroes who do the right thing. With that, I'm going to thank our three panelists. Our time is unfortunately gone, and I'm going to hand back to the moderator. But can I just say once again, a big word of congratulations to the IoD Nigeria for taking this important step. We are watching this space with great interest.
Thank you very much, Professor Dion, and to other panelists. We appreciate that. Bola Diola, we thank you very much, and representative of the CEO of the Nigerian Stock Exchange, Chinua Adeawe, thank you so much. All the panelists, we appreciate our special guests. Thank you, all of you there, and for sending those very insightful comments and questions. Of course, if you have some more other questions, please drop them in the Q&A box, not in the chat room. The Institute of Directors will take everything on board, and this will be part of the enhancement of the vision of the Institute of Directors of Nigeria, which rests on three pillars: professional competence, integrity, and enterprise. And today, pillar 2, which is integrity, is coming into a very sharp focus upon which the two other pillars rest. And this is very interesting. Thank you very much. Now it is time for us to unveil the IoD Nigeria Code of Ethics, and the circulation of the e-copy of this Code of Ethics will be made by the President and Chairman of the occasion. Dr. Christopher Kolade. But here at the headquarters of the IoD in Nigeria, may I have the pleasure of inviting the president and council chairman or the governing council of the IoD in Nigeria, Chief Chris Okunawa, FIOD, as well as Mrs. Amina Yabola, who is the chairperson of the Ethics Committee, the Director General, and the CEO of the IoD, and other distinguished members of the IoD to please join in this presentation and the unveiling of the IoD Nigeria Code of Ethics. Please watch everyone. Okay, we're now moving. May I hand over the microphone to the president to make a few comments as he unveils the unveiling, and then present a copy of that publicly to us here and to all the participants online here and around the world.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, this is something we had hoped that our chairman of the occasion would ordinarily have done, but unfortunately, he's not able to be with us here today in person.
He's doing it virtually.
Oh, great. Thank you so much, sir. Dear esteemed members and staff of IoD Nigeria, and all our friends all over the world, IoD remit is simple: to serve as a critical fulcrum for the entrenchment of good corporate governance practice and act as a reliable compass for preparation of excellent corporate ethics. It is thus very imperative for the effective discharge of these roles to have an institute that is very proactive in constantly reinventing its objectives to align with evolving corporate ideals. It is indeed a pivotal role of our esteemed institute to ensure that organizations are run honestly, responsibly, and managed effectively for long-term prosperity, and to create sustainable values for shareholders, stakeholders, and the nation as a whole. To achieve these, it is expedient that corporate objectives are set in such a way that would leave zero margin for poor corporate governance, corruption, and unethical practices. It is in order to attain the foregoing objectives as a professional body for directors in Nigeria, saddled with the responsibility of ensuring good business ethics and ideal corporate governance, that we have over the years devoted our efforts to raising the bar in maintaining high ethical standards and chart a balanced roadmap for the promotion of those worthy and enviable ideals necessary to making our environment a better business atmosphere. I'm therefore delighted.
Lucy, my death.
I'm therefore delighted to present the revised IoD Code of Ethics on behalf of our chairman. This code sets out the standards of conduct and our members, staff, and stakeholders can expect from us, and what we can expect from them. Our solemn promise is that those standards will underpin every feature of our endeavors, both as an institution and for our members individually. We have ensured that the Code of Ethics accurately and comprehensively addresses the current law and international best practice. As society is dynamic and ever evolving, the code will be reviewed regularly with inputs from members and key stakeholders. Any revision of the IoD Code of Ethics will be duly communicated. The aspiration is for the IoD Code of Ethics to be fully embraced by members and staff of the Institute, and for it to become a standard that institutions, government bodies, companies, and other entities look to as a reference document or guide to formulate their codes of ethics or business conduct. I therefore urge every member and staff of the Institute of Directors Nigeria to take the time to read, mark, learn, and inwardly digest the standards outlined in this code of ethics. As we apply them in our organizations, we will be championing good corporate practices and ethics and making impactful contributions to the fight against corruption and the development of our nation. Thank you. It now gives me pleasure, once again, on behalf of the chairman of this occasion, His Excellency, Dr. Christopher Kolade, CON, DFIOD, that is a distinguished fellow of the Institute of Directors. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and the Holy Spirit, to the good of Nigeria.
Gideon.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We appreciate you, the President. Supported by Mrs. Amina Oyabola, FIOD, the Director General, and other distinguished personalities who are very key to the affairs of the Institute. Thank you very much. We want to go straight to the goodwill messages, and I would really love to ask the special advisor to the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria on ease of doing business, head of PEBEC Secretariat, Dr. Oduwole, to speak first, but we understand that perhaps she's in a meeting right now, so we will take other goodwill messages at this point in time. So in no particular order, just a second before the goodwill messages, we have a very short video for everyone to understand the code of ethics, and after that we'll take the goodwill messages. We appreciate all of you who want to speak after this.
Yeah, okay, let her through, okay.
Continues to do in building the right type of directorship and leadership on the boards of our corporate organizations in our country. We all, without a doubt, understand the importance of having the right kind of leadership on the board of any organization. And even more so, as I've had the privilege of chairing the board of a glorious institution like First Bank with 125 years history, you cannot but think about the fact that for an organization or an institution to have lasted that long over different generations and different cycles of leadership, that the ethical conduct and governance of the institution will be at the heart of ensuring that there's continuity and consistency of value and the essence of the institution. And in building the right kind of corporate culture for our country, we need to build the right attitude, the right value system, and the right practices around which our institutions will be built. And the commonality of our goals and our values will help to build a corporate governance environment that will permeate through the whole of the Nigerian economy and move from big corporates into emerging corporates, small and medium companies, small and medium-sized companies, and at the end of the day, help us to build a more equitable, value-driven, ethical society. So I congratulate the Institute of Directors for the hard work that has been put into building this kind of ethical practices and for the diligence, despite this very tough environment right now, to have been able to deliver on this. Congratulations to all the members of the Institute of Directors. Have a wonderful celebration.
Let me congratulate the Institute of Directors Nigeria on this occasion of the launch of its revised code of ethics. The Manufacturers Association of Nigeria shares with the Institute the deep conviction that ethics and professionalism are cardinal attributes that guarantee the long-term survival and the sustained success of every human institution. As advocates of good governance and as role models for effective leadership, members of the IoD must always subscribe to and demonstrate the highest level of ethical standards in every aspect of our personal and corporate conduct. As a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, our nation and the world in general grapple with the challenge of economic recovery and the need to rebuild socio-economic resilience in our societies. There is therefore no better time than now to be reminded of our obligations both as individuals and as corporate entities. Always choose to do the right thing at the right time and for the right reasons. That is to conduct our affairs on the basis of the highest ethical standards. Thank you.
I am Mama Badamasi, Country Director, Center for International Private Enterprise, SAIP, Nigeria. On behalf of the Center for International Private Enterprise, SAIP, I wish to congratulate IoD Nigeria on this landmark achievement. Code of ethics regulate members' moral standards that govern people's behavior in an organization. It is expected that companies and organizations must run honestly, responsibly, and managed effectively for long-term prosperity and sustainability. The IoD Nigeria Code of Ethics 2020 will set out clearly the values and principles that should guide the organization. It is commendable that IoD is determined to mirror best practices before companies and its members and be the proverbial physician that seeks to heal itself. Congratulations. Since 1988, SAP has been working with local partners in Nigeria to craft business-driven solutions that affect the people. We at SAP believe democracy is at its strongest when the private sector develops innovative solutions to challenges facing the business operating environment, such as a code of ethics. In recent years, SAP and IoD Center for Corporate Governance, IoD-CCG, have fostered collaboration to mainstream the corporate culture of ethics and integrity through standard setting, governance, and risk management. This collaborative program targets capacity strengthening, sensitization, and galvanizing businesses to resist corruption. The launch of IoD Nigeria Code of Ethics is therefore commendable, given that the Code of Ethics for members and staff positions the center to eminently support actors and leaders in the business ecosystem. It is not enough to build business on economic or liberal foundations, but on higher principles in order to create an inspiring environment in the company in which employees are satisfied, ready to learn, grow, be successful, do the right thing, provide superior customer service, and create long-term value for shareholders. What makes a difference between good and excellent company are trust, integrity, culture with happy and engaged employees, transparency, and good reputation. The rule-based approach of compliance program is more legalistic, whereas a value-based approach of compliance program first responsibility on all the leaders and management of the company. The launch of the Code of Ethics will be a model for both members and staff of the IoD. Finally, on behalf of SAG, I commend IoD Nigeria for taking this giant step of setting a good standard in the business community with business leaders and captains of industry. Thank you.
It is indeed a great honor to receive an invitation from the Institute of Directors, Nigeria, to give a goodwill message at the launch of the IoD Code of Ethics. I congratulate the Institute, and I strongly believe that the IoD Code of Ethics will have impact on business conduct and corporate governance in organizations across sectors. Adoption and adherence to a code of ethics builds public trust, enhances business reputation, and promotes brand equity. A code of ethics helps to embed the core values of an organization in its employees and stakeholders. It minimizes subjective and inconsistent management standards while guarding against preferential treatment among stakeholders. Most importantly, compliance to a code of ethics facilitates market efficiency, especially in areas where the law is weak and inefficient. A code of ethics protects the corporate culture and philosophy of an organization in the corporate environment. These are some of the values which I believe that the IoD Code of Ethics will bring to bear in the way that we do business. Over time, the quality of business ethics has diminished in the Nigerian business landscape, creating a heightened trust deficit. The initiative of the IoD should serve to refresh the way that we do business. There should be more business than profit-making, a better trust environment, which will inspire investors' confidence, boost investment, and grow the economy. Once again, I felicitate the Institute of Directors Nigeria for this very great initiative. Thank you for your kind attention. My name is Tukima Pubuja, and I'm the president of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Thank you, and all the very best. Thank you for this initiative.
I wish to felicitate the president and members of the Institute of Directors on this auspicious occasion of the launching of the Code of Ethics for Directors in Nigeria. This will not have come at a better time. Coming not long after the launching of the National Code of Corporate Governance by the Financial Reporting Council, the two codes are actually complementary to each other and will help a great deal in strengthening the governance framework of our companies and other national institutions. For us in CAC, this will actually make our work easier because the duties and responsibilities of directors is key to the development of any company or institution. And over the years, the absence of a clear practice direction on what should or should not be done by a director has made the process of governance difficult. This intervention by the Institute, we expect a better governance framework, a better administration of these companies, and a better relationship between the companies, the directors, the members, and the employees. I will call on all companies, both public and private, to imbibe the provisions of this code, to apply these provisions in their day-to-day dealings. And I'll call on all directors to clearly read and understand what these provisions entails and apply it in the discharge of their responsibilities as directors, bearing in mind that they have a fiduciary relationship with the companies and they will be held accountable for anything they do in the discharge of these responsibilities. I will reiterate our commitment as the only company registered in Nigeria to continue to collaborate with the Institute of Directors to strengthen the framework for governing the governance framework for our companies.
Thank you very much. A round of applause for those who are unable to join us for the science those messages of to the director. So we'll take a few for our participants and distinguished participants who have been online. We thank you hundreds, about almost 250 participants who are still with us for this event. Where as we continue to count down to the wrap up, let's listen to the president and the chairman of Council for the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, Mr. Bayo Olugbemi, FCIB. Mr. Bayo Olugbemi, are you online to join us for your 1 minute goodwill message?
Thank you very much, Mr. Omafe. I am representing Mr. Bayo Olugbemi. My name is Akin Rakinyo, the Director of Membership Services of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria. The president has sent his goodwill message.
We need to mute him and get the volume on your system up. Mr. Olugbemi, I hope the volume. Thank you very much. Please go ahead. I think we can hear you now. The audio seems to be clear.
Thank you very much. I stand to represent the President and Chairman of Council of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, Mr. Bayo Olugbemi, FCIB, who sends his regards. He has sent a goodwill message, and I'll go straight to read the message to the distinguished audience. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it gives me a great pleasure to be part of this historical event. On behalf of the Governing Council, members, management and staff of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, I heartily congratulate the Institute of Directors on this landmark achievement, the launch of the IoD Nigeria Code of Ethics. As you may be aware, one of the cardinal responsibilities of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria is to ensure the furtherance, maintenance, and observance of ethical standards and professionalism among practitioners of the banking profession in Nigeria. And this is what the Institute has been doing for over 57 years. As such, we completely identify with you on this highly commendable initiative that seeks to set the tone for ethical leadership and standards in our corporate dealings. In the words of John Maxwell, everything rises and falls on leadership. We believe that if we get it right at that level, every other thing will fall in place. Indeed, honesty, integrity, responsibility remains the essential virtues that will propel our institutions and country forward. I also like to use this medium to thank the IoD Center for Corporate Governance for appointing our Registrar Chief Executive, Mr. Sheyawu Jobi, FCIB, into its Board of Governors. We count this a great honor for our institute and indeed a recognition of the front-line role that we play in entrenching and upholding ethics and corporate governance within the banking and finance industry. On this note, one more time, I'd like to congratulate IoD, and I align myself with the words of Martin Luther King that the time is always right to do what is right. I wish you all the best and more power to your elbow. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you very much.
FCIB.
Thank you very
President and
much.
Chairman of Council, CIB. Thank you.
Thank you very much on behalf of Bayo Olugbemi, FCIB, the President and Chairman of Council for the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria. Let's listen to the representative of the President of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria and a council member of the Institute, Chief Davidson Alaribe, FCA. You have 1 minute, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me stand on already established protocols. I bring you greetings from Madam President, Mrs. Onome Adewi, FCA. She would have been here, but due to other appointments, she wasn't able to attend to this great event. She sends her apologies. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this is a message from the ICANN President. I'm greatly honored to be invited as a special guest to the official launch of the Institute of Directors of Nigeria Code of Ethics. I pride myself in the fact that I'm a member of this institute. The theme of this launch is arguably timely. Doing good is good business, the ethics dimension. Considering the fact that we are at a critical juncture in the country's economic history, where those entrusted with leadership positions more often than not betray the public trust in them. The growing dimension of unethical practices among professionals, technocrats, and political office holders have become a source of worry to well-meaning individuals in the society. The intervention of the Institute of Directors through this official launch of its Code of Ethics could not have come at a more auspicious time. The creation of regular awareness on the need to uphold high ethical disposition by those entrusted with leadership position is the responsibility of everyone. This is what ICANN, as a globally recognized professional institute, has lived for in its 55 years of existence. Good business conduct is not just a moral obligation, but it is also the pivot upon which meaningful growth and development can be achieved. I look forward to a very enlightening panel session. The undeniable impressive profiles of our highly respected chairman of the occasion, Dr. Christopher Kolade, and the other panelists convinced me that at the end of the session today, we would have been provided with important talk kits to achieve our desire at entrenching high ethical business environment in Nigeria. Finally, at ICANN, we will continue to collaborate with IoD and other stakeholders in the creation of an enabling environment for business activities in the country. I congratulate the Institute of Directors for adding another cap by virtue of this launch to its numerous achievements. Thank you for your kind attention. Dem Onome Joy Adewuyi, FCA, 56th President of ICANN. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that. Let us add another cap to the goodwill messages, this time from the President of the Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria, Dame Jumoke Gladys Simples. You have the floor, madam.
Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be here. The President, Chairman of Council of the Institute of Directors. I'm very pleased to be here. I will crave your indulgence to respect the already established protocol of the Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria to all of you at the Institute. I also want to specifically thank Mrs. Oyagbola the chairman of this committee, for putting this together. I know it is not an easy thing because I have tried to do something like
We seem to have a bit of a low connectivity there with the president of the Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria for a goodwill message. Thank you very much. If she is able to reconnect with us within the time remaining, we'll appreciate listening to her. But I'm sure we have another goodwill message. The president of the Nigeria Institute of Management of Nigeria, Mrs. Patience Anabo, FNIM. Mrs. Anabo? Please, could you please unmute? Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon, all, and I stand on the existing protocol. On behalf of the Governing Council, members, management and staff of the Nigerian Institute of Management Chartered, I congratulate the Institute of Directors on the auspicious occasion of the formal launch and unveiling of the IoD Nigeria Code of Ethics for members and staff. This laudable initiative is in sync with the letters and spirit of the Nigerian Institute of Management's Code of Conduct, crafted in 1962. Just as contained in the NIM's Code of Conduct, individuals and organizations are expected to be above board in all their dealings. They are expected to be selfless, put service above self, and resist the temptation of cutting corners to get jobs done. Above all, the values of integrity, accountability, transparency, fairness, efficiency, effectiveness, responsibility, and equity are to be observed at all times. Whenever these values are overlooked in our personal, organizational, and national dealings, the ideals of good management, which include universal best practices, corporate governance standards, and distinctive individual disciplines are being trampled upon. This, in turn, leads to blatant disregard for due process, corruption, and other forms of unethical practices, organizational and economic failure. Non-compliance with corporate governance has continued to be a recurring decimal in the way both corporate and government businesses are conducted in this country. Hopefully, with this bold move by IoD Nigeria, the Nigerian Institute of Management Chartered now has a worthy partner to reorientate Nigerians to imbibe and practice the principles of good management, governance, and best practice, and best business ethics. The NIM wishes you well in the pursuit of this new and commendable task. Thank you very much. Mrs. Pat Anabo, President, NIM Chartered.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Anabo. And if you permit me, I'm not too sure if we have Dame Jumoke Gladys Simplis to give us about 30 seconds to wrap up the presentation she was making earlier. That's the president of the Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria. You have about 30 seconds, so 1 minute, madam. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. As a matter of fact, I was saying that no well-meaning corporate can make in this country that all of us have been passed as in our society. If ethics have been observed by all those concerned, we wouldn't be.
James, please, we sincerely apologize. The connectivity where you were seemed to be a little bit patchy this afternoon. Thank you very much. We appreciate your contributions. The president of the Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria, a very strong goodwill message to the Institute of Directors on this very important occasion. I have the pleasure now, we want to invite the special advisor to the president of Nigeria on the ease of doing business and the head of the PEBEC Secretariat, Dr. Jumoke Oduwole. We understand that the meeting with the vice president is already in session, which His Excellency, the Honorable Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Otumba Adeniyi Adebayo, CON, told us about earlier. So with that, we're able to have Dr. Jumoke Oduwole speak to us, but we appreciate she connected with us earlier and we saw her on the video, which means the interest that the presidency and the government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria has in this very important contribution to ethics, integrity in business in Nigeria, put together by the Institute of Directors of Nigeria. Let me yield the floor now for the feedback from the survey that we've had earlier and the vote of thanks from the Director General and Chief Executive Officer of the IoD Nigeria, Mr. Bamidele Alimi, MIOD. Please, you have the floor.
Mr. President, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, just before I go on, I think just because of technology, there is also online the national president of NASIMA, and she seems to be inadvertently who is supposed to also give a goodwill message. I want to invite Ajia Saratu Aliu. I think I saw her online, to please give a goodwill message. Ajia, please, just before I do the survey. Thank you, madam.
Thank you very much, Dr. Alimi. I beg to stand on existing protocol. I didn't know I was going to be called to give any goodwill message. I've been here since it started, but all the same, any company or any organization that is not based on good ethics will not survive, because we all need the best of ethics, the best of what we can do to give best of our ability to our customers, as we call them in our private sector. We need to make them comfortable. We need to make them believe in us, that we are really, they are serving them. And before you can do that, you have to have very good ethics in place, transparency, accountability, fairness. We have to have all those in place for us to really give the service that is deserving of us. So I want to say congratulations, IoD, for this code of ethics which you have in place. NASIMA has a code of ethics in place, and that is why we have our organization moving the way it has been doing. You never hear us having any rankles whenever we come to reorganization or doing so many things. So I want to thank you for really putting this code of ethics in place, and quite a number of organizations will follow into your footsteps, and it is going to be for the better for our country. Thank you very much, and God bless you. Congratulations once more.
Thank you very much, Ajia Saratu Aliu, the National President of Nigeria Association of Chambers of Commerce, Industry, Mines, and Agriculture. Now, to the reason why I've been called to the podium, that is to first talk to the survey, give you the results of the short survey we had just as the panel session
commenced. We had just 8 questions, and I'll just go through it. We have 45% of the respondents to this survey in the medium-sized, small, and micro organization, while 30% are from multinational, and 15% of this from non-profit making organization, while 10% from the public sector. And the first question was to inquire whether their organization had adopted a code of ethics for board members and management. And it is gratifying to note that a very large majority, which is 87.5%, confirmed that the organization had a code of ethics for the board and management and staff of the institution, while 10% claim that the code is in the developmental stage, and 2.5% said no. I think after attending this event today, no doubt this 2.5 will change for the better. We expect them to now start developing something, or to just, to make it simple, pick the IoD code of ethics and adopt it. The next question was whether both internal and external stakeholders are aware of the organization's code of ethics, and a culture of ethical value is expected to all from all stakeholders. And 75.2% confirmed that yes, there's awareness of the organization's code, and there's a culture of ethical values in their organizations. 25% said yes, and 12.5% said no, and another 12.5% said others. So we are hopeful that this will get better. We are looking forward to 100% compliance. And then the next question was to ask whether the code of ethics that is currently existing in organizations was duly approved by the board of directors or any other governing body for that organization, and that the tone for ethical leadership is set at the top. Good to know. 90% of the respondents said yes, which is quite gratifying, while 10% said no. And it is hoped that we are going to be working together as a body and as a country to ensure that we have the right tone of ethical leadership from the top. Like one of the presenters today had said, the tone is set from the top. Now, the next question was on the adoption and implementation of a conflict of interest policy within the organization. That is that the board of organization has approved a code of ethics policy, a conflict of interest policy. And 67.5% said yes, that there is a conflict of interest policy duly approved by the board currently running the organization. 20% said no, and then 12.5% claim that the conflict of interest policy in the organization is under consideration. We want to again reiterate the need to adopt a well-structured conflict of interest policy. It helps management and staff, or even directors, to quickly able to understand where they stand when the challenge of ethics or conflict of interest come in. When you have a policy that they can quickly look at and then adopt or adapt to their situation. Now, the next question is whether there's an approved gift policy in place which is being implemented to guide staff and directors for them to know what is expected of them. 70% affirmed that it does exist in the organization, while 30% said no. We think that is still a little bit low. It could be higher because it is important, like I said, that people are properly guided. And sometimes you think people know what to do when they are confronted with this kind of thing, but it should not be, we should not assume, and we should put up policy that clearly state and educate staff what they should do when confronted with this kind of situation. The next question, which I think is the second to the last question, talks about the code that has been launched today. Like the president said earlier, the IoD had always had a code. What we have done is to revise that code to make it meet the needs of the challenge, the current challenges. So we asked whether the organization will find the IoD Nigerian Code of Ethics for the management as staff, especially useful for adoption. And it is. I am happy to know that 92.5% of the respondents said yes. I will not talk about the people that said no. But whether as it may, we still have about 7.5% that said no. And we are hopeful that when they read it properly, when they read it now that it's been launched, they will be able to properly adapt it. And the last questions was whether the code of ethics for members will be useful to guide the development of a code of ethics for the board and other governing body in organization. Especially this question is for those who have claimed they don't have any yet. And I'm happy to know that that figure is going to change because 92.3% of the respondents said yes, the IoD code of ethics for members will be a useful guide for developing the code of ethics for their board. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I think I want to thank everybody who had participated in this survey. It is gratifying to note that we are all on the same plate. The second half of my assignment is to, on behalf of the Institute, say a big thank you to everybody that has been here today. But specifically, I want to first thank our special guest of honor, the Honorable Minister for Industry, Trade and Investment, His Excellency Otumba Adeniyi Adebayo, CON, and to thank him that despite the meeting he had with the minister, he stayed with us, and we thank him for joining all the way from Abuja. And of course, a great father of the Institute, somebody who inspires us all the time, His Excellency Dr. Christopher Kolade, CON, Distinguished Fellow of the Institute. We want to say a big thank you to you, sir, for joining us and for staying with us throughout. You joined almost 20 minutes before the program commenced and you are still here. We say a very big thank you to you, sir. We look forward to, again, gaining from the wealth of your knowledge. And for our lead speaker, Mr. M.K. Ahmed.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Welcome, sir. You're welcome, sir. Mr. M.K. Ahmed, from the beginning, the moment we asked you that we wanted you to give this lecture, you never said no. You are with us all through the period of preparation. We thank you very much, Alhaji M.K. Ahmed, for agreeing to be our lead speaker and for giving, setting the tone for the discussion that followed. Thank you very much. Now, to our moderator, Professor Russell. Professor Russell has been a wonderful partner with the Institute, and I was not surprised that when we asked him to moderate the panel session at this event, he said yes without hesitation. We thank you very much, Professor, for joining us all the way from Pretoria, and we pray that our partnership will continue to get better and stronger. It's also my pleasure to extend our appreciation to the panelists, the wonderful panelists of today, starting, of course, with Mrs. Bola Adeshola. We want to thank you that despite your very busy schedule, you were able to stay with us throughout. We want to thank Professor Bolaji Owasanwoye, the chairman of ICPC. Thank you very much. And of course, Mrs. Tinuke Awe. Yes, despite the fact that you are conscripted very late in the day, but you did give a very wonderful performance, and I'm sure Mr. Oyema will be very proud of you. Thank you very much. Now, next, I want to thank the president and chief executives of our sister business membership organization. You pardon me that I may not be able to mention everybody by name, but I want to recognize and thank the president and the general of NASIMA. They are both here. Thank you very much. I also want to thank the president and DG of Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. They are both here. I want to thank the president and registrar CEO of Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria. Thank you very much. I want to thank the president of ICANN, represented by Chief David Alaribe. Thank you very much. I want to thank the President and Registrar CEO of Nigerian Institute of Management. We thank you very much for coming. And of course, the Registrar and CEO, the President of the Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria. We thank you very much. And of course, our wonderful partner and our good friend, the Registrar General of the Corporate Affairs Commission, Alhaji Ahmed Abubakar. I want to thank you very much, sir, for being with us, giving us the goodwill message, and every other thing you've done over the last few weeks to support us. Thank you very much. And of course, also another partner we've had in the public sector, Dr. Jumoke Oduwole. I'm glad to add MIOD to your name today because this is the first public outing since you joined the institute. Thank you very much, madam, the special advisor to the president on ease of doing business. And after that, I want to come back home and I will start my appreciation with the immediate past president of the institute. As stated in the president's speech, the vision, which started in 2018, started with you. And I'm glad you are alive and well today to witness that thing that you planned to happen as an immediate past president. Alhaji Ahmed Rufai Mohammed, he joined all the way from Abuja. Thank you very much, sir. And of course, I want to thank members of council, past presidents, especially past presidents who are online here today. I want to thank you all for making it. And of course, the two vice presidents of the institute. The first vice president, Dr. Mrs. Ije Jidema, even as at last night, she was on me to find out how things were going. I thank you very much, madam, for being present in almost the last 2 hours. And of course, Alhaji Tijani Borodo, the second vice president of the institute. I want to thank you for being here. Thank you very much for attending this program. And of course, the honorary treasurer, who brave all the odds to also be here personally. I thank you very much. Prince Austin Enajemo Isire, thank you very much for coming. I want to give a special thank to the chairman, Mrs. Amina Oyagbola, and the members of the ethics committee. I think I don't even know how to describe that committee because I was present and I knew the effort that went into making this program a reality. Madam, I want to say a very big thank you, and through you to all members of this committee for the wonderful work that has been done. And I also want to thank the advisor to this committee, Ms. Benedicta Moloku, past president, DFIOD, for the wonderful support she gave to the committee to make this happen. And without my colleagues in the secretariat, this may also have been impossible. I want to say thank you to the secretary of the committee, Mr. Kenen Wanego, and of course, all the other staff who sacrificed to make this event a success. I cannot end this without also thanking our compere for today, Mr. Boasi Nomofaye. At the last minute, we called you and you answered our call. Thank you very much. You have been very wonderful today. You've made the program worth the while. I want to say thank you to everybody. Gentlemen of the press, the publicity this program had received in the last 2 weeks is commendable, and it is with your support. We thank you very much. We want to thank everyone. We want to thank Channels TV, we want to thank AIT, we want to thank Punch newspapers, The Guardian, Daily Trust, Vanguard, I hope I'm not, TVC, Arise Television, yes, thank you very much. And of course, ProShare, Silverbird Television, yes. You've all been wonderful. I want to say a very big thank you. You made this event a reality. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to hand over to the compere. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Let me say a very big thank you to, I want to hold that, okay, let's do that together because I was about to comment on the fact that at the headquarters here at the Secretariat, the President and Chairman of the Council and Mrs. Amina Oyagbola, both of them hardly stepped out of this hall since we started. As a matter of fact, I came in about 10 minutes before the event and I met both of them already seated. Please give a round of applause to both of them. And that is what leadership is all about, that they were here even before many of us came in here and they were prepared, and they were here all through. Thank you very much. Let me say thank you very much to Chief Chris Okunowo, FIOD, and the president of the, thank you very much, and chairman of council for piloting this. And Mrs. Amina Oyabola, thank you very much. The level of your patience and concentration for 2.5 hours and more is well commended. Thank you very much, Mrs. Oyabola. We appreciate the chairperson of the IoD Ethics Committee. And of course, Prince Austin Isire, the chairman of NSITF and honorary treasurer of IoD Nigeria. Thank you very much for also supporting the institute. Thank you, everyone. I look forward to seeing all of you next time. Do have a great day, and bye for now.